Good afternoon to you. Welcome to the show today. We got a new format lined up for you today, and I'm excited to bring you today's guest, Juanita Vorster. She is the next CEO expert. She's also a public speaker. She's a business entrepreneur, and she's a ball of energy, really. So we're going to have a fun conversation. She's spoken to lots of great big companies out there too, like the Sunlam Glacier Profile, the Institute of Professional Accountants, etc. We're going to get into a whole bunch of fun things, but mainly focusing on change. And we're all experiencing change right now. So let's see what a bundle of energy, creating a new direction and change can lead us to. It's unscripted. It's your show too. Please ask your questions. Bring all those interesting, difficult ones too. Let's put her on the spot and see how she handles change in the minute. My name's Alex McPhail. This is High Performance Teams. Please stay with me. Juanita, how are you doing today? Welcome.
I am doing very well, thank you. How are you doing today?
I'm freezing. It seems particularly cold here in the Highveld right now, but going to survive through this. I'm excited for this conversation. And as we spoke a minute ago, unscripted is going to be fun. You and I have some common interest with public speaking and sharing our message out there. But let's take a minute and just talk about some of the earlier times in your life, formative years, and what led you to where you are. So maybe just share with the listeners, what is UNITA all about and where did it all begin?
UNITA now is all about business and not complicated business. So, or let's say UNITA now is all about simple success. It's possible for anyone to be successful as long as you keep the right things simple enough. How this UNITA got to be here was a very ordinary life. Nothing extraordinary, nothing to really write a book about. It was an ordinary middle-class Afrikaans life in a suburb in Pretoria, pretty much as ordinary as you can get. But I remember from a very young age always getting feedback that not I'm different, but that I do things different. And looking back now with what I've learned in my career, and as you study certain things and observe certain things, my different didn't come from being weird, as some people labeled it, but more of I see the world in a certain way. And the only way I can describe it is when people see problems, they see a ball of something. Mm-hmm. What my mind does automatically, and I'm really grateful for this talent, is it immediately goes and it splits the ball into its different little pieces. And I know immediately where to start, what to do next. And I see the potential outcomes as well. I only learned later that is called strategy and systems thinking. Okay. But I've done my whole life and my whole business without knowing the term for it. So that's what I do. Success kept simple.
Okay, so as let's call it an adolescent, maybe high school years, thinking about it, did you have mentors who were explaining things to you in a way that unpacks, becomes strategy, or were in business or anything of the like? Is it just something that brewed in your head?
Not at all. Not at all. The only mentor I've ever met was actually last year. I was at a conference in South Africa, and there was another guy, Roger Harrop from the UK, who was also at the conference, completely unaware of each other. And I saw him spoke, and I was like, I resonate with this guy. And then as I walked past the book table, I picked up his book and read the back cover, and I was like, this guy, I could have written this. Exactly that, I could have written this. Roger is now my business partner. He's twice my age, but we could just as well be the exact same person. So that was the first time I really found someone where I didn't have to explain how I see things, how it works. Okay. We just kind of complete each other's sentences. And what I'm trying to do with my speaking, consulting, and so on is translate the way I see things into a way that others can replicate. Whether they have that innate skill or not, surely anything can be systematized and replicated.
Okay, so talking about systems, because as you were explaining the ball earlier, for me, I was thinking about a process, a system. That was the way you explained it. I thought systems. Give me an example of as a youth where you approached a problem or a task, a project, and you made it a system and it worked for you. Can you think of something?
Oh yes, very much so. So say, for instance, in drama, you need to have a play put on. Mm-hmm. So other people would go, oh, I don't know what to do. I need to go and ask this. For me, it was, there needs to be a play. What is the functional parts of a play? There needs to be a script. There needs to be an actors. Okay. So if there needs to be a script, it's not a problem. It is, well, who will do the script? I don't know a script writer, so let me teach myself script writing. And I did. Okay, great. Now the actors need to start learning the script and they're not doing it right. So someone needs to tell them what to do. So it's all about, for me, that breaking the ball into pieces is not about knowing what the correct names, the formal names are, but understanding what the logic behind it is. So the system is then of putting on a play is know the play, have the name, have the script, have the actors, have a director, which is then whoever, formal or not, let them rehearse, put on the play. It was really as simple. It's only when I found out later, and I did a lot of these things, and I became a dance teacher as well, because it was simple. Here's a problem. It needs a solution.
Yeah.
No one else is putting up their hand. I shall figure out the solution. It's only really later in life that I figured out that apparently not everyone approaches life that way.
Okay, yeah, sure. And it's great to have that ability to see things in sort of a problem-solving kind of way. Well, this is something we want to do, so let's get through it. So let me fast forward a little bit. That was you recognized that was your way of thinking. So talk me through then your first business and how you go about setting up a business and what did that first business entail for you?
So that first business started in the exact same way the rest of my life was. Someone who studied with me said she wants to immigrate to New Zealand and she doesn't want to sell her company here. Do I want half of it and want to run half of it from this side? And then we have an international business. And I said, yes, of course. And so then I started doing that, having never worked in a similar type of business before, having never run a business before, and literally going from, don't know what it is, didn't study how to do this, don't have a business degree or an MBA, or I don't know what the solution is. I don't know how to Google the solution, but I see the problem. Let me break it down to the most logical parts, fix the first one, fix the second one. Oh, hey, I'm running a business. And then after a while, I said, well, there has to be an easy way to do this. Surely there is a system already that I can tap into. And the more I looked around for similar type of companies, similar type of businesses and benchmarks and how to do it, the more I became dissatisfied with the advice I got. And for me, it was, I can't run a company that way. It doesn't make sense to what I want to do, to how I want to run my company. So then it was pick up the axe again and just get through the maze, not by a pre-described way, but in the most logic way possible. And testing that not only by is it logic for me and my team, but doesn't make sense for the clients. So the company is very much, the way we offer services, the way we change, the way we innovate is very much based on what does the client need, what will the client need in the near future, whether they know it or not, and what can we do now about it, whether it's formalized or accepted industry standard or not.
Okay, so what is the product then that you're offering in this business?
In this business, we call it an outsourced communication department. So it's not just an agency where you get a brief from a client and you do the work, you think on behalf of the client. Our clients typically tend to be under-resourced, understaffed, but they've got huge pressure on them. Okay. So they expect us to think on their behalf as well, advise, and then do, and then get the job done.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, now to get yourself in the mind of the client, and let's just bring it back and then to the sort of the theme of the show being high performance teams. We see that incremental gains is the principle that allows people to get further advanced, and that's the basic 3-step process of thorough preparation, executing with precision, and review. So to get yourself into the mind, what is the preparation taken on either a project for a new client or a long-term client to deliver the product that they're trying to get out of you? And
here's where I think your line of work and my line of work might be a little bit different. I can get away with, so there's two metaphors I use that I don't know if it's offensive to pilots, but it honestly doesn't make any aviation sense. Both my sister and her husband are commercial pilots, so I know it doesn't make sense. But I tend to fly by the seat of my pants and build the airplane as I fly it. No, that is impossible if you're in a highly trained, highly specific job like being a pilot, being a Silver Falcon, and so on. So the amount of preparation that needs to go into something that is higher risk, is a lot different where you have a more creative business, a more creative model where you can get away with a less preparation. So what the preparation then looks like when we advise a client, or whether it be in my speaking business, my consulting business, the communication business, whatever the project is, it's about listening. It's about listening to the requirements. We often get briefs that say, I want to do X, because that is what they see. That is what the result is. The way to get there is called something different. So say, for instance, we want to put on an air show, in your case. The way to get there is have pilots do the training, form the formations, etc. But it's not framed in the what should be done. It's framed in the solution. So if you can become skilled in seeing or distinguishing between what your client thinks they need to be done versus what the client wants to see, that already helps. If you can make sure that they might be saying, well, we want this type of communication activity or this type of strategic session to get to that point. If you understand what the difference is between these two, then you can say, well, hang on, guys, a different way, an easier way, a cheaper way, a better way, a less risky way, whatever the client is and whatever the needs are, is what I've learned so far. So you start then partnering them on getting the solution they want, but also playing to your strengths. And one of my other rules, not making promises you can't keep just because a client thinks they want a certain thing. So preparation, understand what the outcome should be, the end of the process should be, not just what the first point should be.
Okay, great. Now you've dived into a bit of an aviation metaphor, in and out, flying by the seat of the pants, air shows, etc. So I don't know if there's anything about staying in the helicopter that you want to bring out here. As we said earlier, this is an easy conversation and it's not really scripted. So if you've got your questions for UNITA, please bring them through now. I see a lot of guys tuning in. So I don't know if you want to bring in the staying in the helicopter metaphor and as this relates to incremental gains and the strategic view of things.
Absolutely, and it's such a good fit. So staying in the helicopter is the concept that was created by Roger Harrop that I explained at the start of the show, who's my business partner in the UK. He created this concept. His thing was also in running a multinational PLC based in the UK. He said, well, it's got to be simple. There's got to be a way that we can make it simple. And he said it's called staying in the helicopter. My words for it were, make sure that business is not just busyness and the big picture. So most people say the big picture. The problem with the big picture is it's not high enough. So staying in the helicopter is about being very strategic about if you get into this helicopter, where do you fly to? And getting into a helicopter in layman's terms, play terms, for business is if you're a business leader, you're often way too busy to work on your business. Working in your business is fall out of a tree easy, especially for anyone starting their business now saying, I've always been a brilliant accountant, let me run an accountancy firm. Mm-hmm. I've always been a brilliant marketer, let me run a marketing firm, etc. It's easy to work in your business. It's incredibly hard to work on your business. So you've got to make time for those things. And when business leaders do that, they don't know where to start. And that's why Roger and I do the staying in the helicopter, saying, make time for getting in your helicopter. When you get into the helicopter, fly to this list of areas, keep it really simple. And if you know what's going on in those specific areas in your business and you can tweak those, you will have sustained profitable growth.
Okay, all right. So the helicopter metaphor isn't just for the big picture then. If you imagine getting airborne, because I was going to ask you about, we've got some jetties on the show watching, but getting airborne and you get a bit elevated and you can see helicopter pilots like to stay low anyway. So the bigger picture would be the 30,000 foot view from an airliner. But it's actually to go on to extricate yourself out of the premises and go somewhere new, essentially. Is that the essential message?
Absolutely, and with the agility of a helicopter. I remember I did a test flight, or not a test flight, a flight with my sister when she was still having her, I think, PPL, CPL. When are you allowed to transport people but not for money?
PPL, that's right, private license.
There you go. She had to build her hours. So in this little Cessna, it was interesting. I don't have a fear of flying. I love flying, but it was a different experience where you could actually kind of next to you see a little bit of the ground and the bumps were a little bit more, but it was still not the same experience as a helicopter. The first time I got in a helicopter, and this is way before I met Roger, but when he told me about the staying in the helicopter concept, it immediately clicked, because my first time in the helicopter was, I get it. I get the freedom. I get the, there's something, let's go there. My first time in a helicopter, I was on a game farm when I did a project for some of the most prestigious game farms in South Africa. And they were darting buffalo to check on their health, to measure the horns, etc., etc. And I just hear, Juanita, get in, we saw something in the field. And I was like, what? I've never been in a helicopter. Here we go, no straps. And it was one of these lappendraad, my dad always called them, one of those where it's literally a bubble with a tail. And you get in, and I don't know how the seatbelt thingy worked, and here's this thing, and here we go. Now we're going to, take pictures of stuff. And the amount of freedom and agility there makes absolute sense for these helicopter sessions in business as well, where you go, I'm leaving the ground. I can do nothing about it. I've got my comms, but I can do nothing about it. Yeah. I'm leaving the ground. And then I make decisions on where to go so I can make sure that my entire ground area is covered. So you hover a bit and then move, and hover a bit and then move. But if you just get in the helicopter and start flying around without any plan, all you're going to do is waste a whackload of money on fuel, because you're not going to be able to do what you need to get done in these helicopter sessions.
Okay, all right, great. So understanding the helicopter theme there. Also, keeping the aviation theme alive a little longer here. So one of the themes that I like to explore is strategy versus tactics. And this landscape, the last 10, 15 weeks or so, has been, we've been disrupted. We're in a storm now. And my new catchphrase is, who better to help you navigate the storms than a pilot? So, when you're flying long-range flights on airliners, it's a long way. It's crossing time zones and equators and weather and all sorts of changes over a long distance. You have a strategy to go from A to B, and along the way, things will come up that aren't exactly what you planned for. You have an understanding of the weather, but maybe you'll have things like a sick passenger or something technical. Now, we're trained to deal with these anomalies that come up, but you have to shift your way of thinking from the strategy is to go to New York. The tactics now come in to say, well, either the score line is bigger than it was planned, and now we have to go extra around the weather, or we're dealing with something technical on the airplane or a sick passenger. So now we have to revert off strategy. The plane keeps going, but you have to deal with this in the moment, in the tactics. But the full circle moment of that is once you're completed with this bit of tactics, you now have to get yourself back onto strategy again, strategy once more, because that is still the plan. I mean, we're not talking about a situation where you can no longer finish the flight. But if you can get back on strategy, you get back on strategy and you continue the flight. Now, considering the landscape we're in now with this pandemic plus the economic fallout, you've been quite busy online recently as well with disrupting. Where do you see that landing with how businesses and business owners or executives find themselves in the space now and adapting to this change that's thrust upon them at the moment?
That's a huge question. Do we have 3 days to discuss it? Right. Try and break this down into parts. The first thing is maybe in terminology. It was on Monday afternoon, I recorded a session for a new web series that's launched by Boardroom Magazine based in Belgium. They're doing a series of mini courses specifically for associations. And I'm their strategy expert. And one of the things I recorded was the difference between purpose, vision, mission, strategy, tactics, planning. And very often when we say strategy, people mean purpose, they mean vision, they mean mission, they mean tactics, they mean a plan. And if we separate these things a little bit, a strategy is about how to get to where you are going. A purpose is, this is where we're supposed to end up. So how business leaders should be focusing now is exactly the same as a pilot does. The purpose remains the same. Whether the purpose is to make money, whether the purpose is to make a social impact, whether the purpose is to take care of your family, whatever that core purpose is. And remember, your purpose isn't what you do. What you do is just defined by your purpose. So purpose first. Why am I doing this? I need to transport a bunch of passengers to New York, for instance. There's a quote, and I don't know who to attribute it to. It's on the internet, so I always forget to look at who it is, but it's never been more true now. Be very focused, be very clear on where you're going, and very flexible about how you're going to get there. New York, the purpose stays the same. Feeding the family stays the same. Or making a profit stays the same. Making social impact stays the same. It's the how that has to change. And that's where the tactics is. And often what I see is when change happens, like this happened to us now, many people aren't able, because they've never been forced to develop the skill. And yes, skill or change is a skill and you can learn it even though you hate it. But many people have never been forced to develop that skill to change in an instant. A little bit of psychology. 75% of the world's personality types hate change. 75%. So if this whole pandemic thing happened to 25% of the world that really like change, it would have been fine. But since it's happened to 100% of us, 75% of the world's people aren't built to really be able to do this. Another bit is if you look at the grief cycle, DAPTA, and I always have to remember this, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance, those 5 things. That's what you go through with a loss. Whether it's a loss of a person, whether it's a loss of business, whether it's a loss of a dream, whether it's a loss of everything you've worked for the past 20 years, as we've seen now, everyone that's owned a restaurant, everyone that had an event business, pilots.
Yeah.
You've worked so hard for it, and in seconds it's gone. So what the brain wants to do, it wants to go through that grief cycle to come out at acceptance. We didn't have time. And with disruptive change, which isn't linear, this happens, then this, but it's all over the show. It is absolutely an S show. There's no way to get around it. There's no way to foresee it. And that's what disruptive change is. So the skill we need to develop is to kind of bridge from change to acceptance really quickly, to try and not go through the cycle first before we get to acceptance. Now, that takes years of practice, but that is also a decision. It comes back to your high performance, that preparation. In your preparation, you can't foresee everything. In your preparation, you can, however, develop the skill to say, this is the situation, whether I like it or not, let me accept it. And acceptance does not mean I condone it, I like it, I want it to stay this way, I agree with it, whatever that disruptive change is. It's just, I accept that these are the new facts. What do I do next? And start putting that plan into motion. And then what I find is, while that plan is then working, then grief catches up with you. Then you go through the, I don't like this, I'm really angry about this, but what if I, and then the depression, and finally the true acceptance. But if you can bridge that a little bit with what is the first thing I can do to stick true to my purpose, to get the focus back on my purpose, you'll help. So it's a few concepts in between, and to sum it up, it's not about having the plan and sticking to the plan in disruptive change. It's about knowing the purpose. Where am I going? Why am I going there? And then accepting that it's going to be a new way to get there, and understanding that grief and emotions and psychology and humanity will catch up with you in a little bit.
Okay. All right. So now you mentioned a lot of things there as well. This idea that we fast forwarded, that this thing was chucked on us at last minute, and we fast forwarding through it, etc. So the plan is now, obviously it's changed, but also the dream might have been parked. But at the same time, you may have been economically squeezed right now too. At some point, you just have to hustle. And this is, I think, where the whole conversation started between you and I a few weeks ago, is that sometimes you just got to hustle. So what is it that, what are your thoughts on the hustle, or on reacting to change positively? You talked about the 25% of people. Is it the 25% of people that hustle, or can everybody hustle? How do you get...
Everybody can hustle. Everybody can hustle. It's easier for the 25% to hustle. I've got a colleague who says, don't touch my roots. She's gotten more used to the fact that I am going to ruffle the leaves and shake on the branches and pick the fruit. But she says, there's certain things, safety and security, that you don't touch. So people can change. I'm reading a book at the moment called Personality Isn't Set, or Personality Can't Change. Okay. Personality isn't permanent. There you go. I know there was alliteration somewhere. And the premise is a psychologist that says, just because you were one person in a lifetime doesn't mean you have to remain that person. People do change, whether they decide to or not. So surely you can decide who you want to be. And if you decide to say, well, I might be in my comfortable setting, might be part of the 75% that don't like change, but I want to be more comfortable in times that, frankly, are going to keep on changing. It's a one pandemic of 2 years every 100 years, so we hopefully won't see another one after the 2-year period has passed. But there are other forms of change that's always going to have an impact on your plan, your dream, what you worked really hard for.
Yeah.
And the hustle bit, though, you hustle harder than I do. You hustle harder than I do because you've been thrust into a situation where you've literally had no choice. So my type of hustle is staying ahead of the game, being innovative, making opportunities, saying yes to opportunities. Your hustle, however, or your lessons learned in the hustle during this time, I think will be more valuable to the audience. So, Alex, if I can take over your seat at the moment, I'm sure there's someone, your airplane, or what did they say in the movie? Your plane.
Yeah.
What's the hustle like? How do you hustle when the entire dream has been taken from you?
Yeah, it's interesting, UNITA. I've actually been thinking about this to offer the mic over to someone to do a takeover and remind me to come back to Tim Ferriss. I'm not sure if either any of the listeners or you are a Tim Ferriss fan, but it's a great insight from a talk I listened to this morning. So for me, the hustle really was, there was an opportunity to just do something. Every day you got to wake up and you got to be ready. You got to wake up, you got to get up, dress up, and show up. Be ready. And if you don't do those basic things, then you can't win the day. So if you have to do the basic things, it doesn't mean you will win the day. But if you don't do the basic things, you can't win the day. So what happened really was, because of the work I've been doing, on various platforms, including this, sharing the message of high performance teams, there's been a bit of a following. And what I did was there was an opportunity to deliver wine. People had ordered a lot of wine. There was obviously a backlog over a 6-week odd period. When the doors opened, then the 1st of June arrived, you were allowed to sell alcohol again, the delivery started. And these courier companies couldn't keep up. So my neighbor happens to run a courier company, and I said, well, no problem, let me take a box of deliveries for you, I can do that. And at the moment I thought, you know what, I'm not too sure, I'll take a photo of this, dressed up, ready to go again, get up, dress up and show up, dressed as smart as I could doing deliveries, and I thought, I'll just document this. And I was in two minds, and after the second day of doing wines, it was actually quite nice because having been locked up, I'm a social person. Meeting people with a box of wine, you got friendly people, and one guy, we spent 45 minutes talking at his petrol station, and it was just a great conversation. And I had to get back to my work. But I was in two minds whether I should share this photo online, because in some respects, I'm trying to build a high-performance product here, but in other respects, I'm also trying to show the humanity side that, listen, we all have ups and downs, which is a central theme of the show, talking about the downs and the setbacks and the disappointments. And I had such a strong sense of connection, and people seem to have really resonated with that post. Over 300,000 views of that post, and it's still going. And and a lot of people started saying, "Hey, can I also help?" And I thought, well, the first guy that said that, I said, well, let me find out. But after day one, about 50 odd people had asked me, can I also help? I thought, well, here's an opportunity. The market's speaking. Maybe I should get this information together and just see if there's something bigger. And true as it was, I went away on my flight. I came back and I went to my neighbor again. I said, listen, I've got a database of people that are willing to help. And it's fascinating because they did need help. And we had a semi-temporary northern warehouse here, in the Pretoria delivery area. At some point we had, I think, 8 people delivering out of this temporary warehouse, but they also needed people in the actual main warehouse just to move the boxes around. Now, the people that reached out to me, firstly, they're on LinkedIn, and some of them were passed on by a connection. These are accountants. I mean, the one guy has 2 degrees, he's a financial manager, 20 years experience, he's in the hotel game, but those are shut. I've got aircraft technicians, I've got accountants, I've got programmers, I've got a range of people, and most of them had some sort of post-school qualification, and about 30% have degrees. And when I replied to them, I said, listen, I know you asked to help out with driving, but are you prepared to do anything? Like, there's office work, there's warehouse work, moving boxes around. Again, the response was, sure, anything. Because I think they also recognize, A, it's something to do. B, there's a bit of, you can put bread on the table. But C, you never know what comes. And so, again, I managed to put 21 people at work last week. And that fueled sort of the next wave of, well, let's build something out of this. And I'm not sure where it's going to go, but those people that did work last week were very thankful, and for the opportunity to just see a different industry. Moving boxes, a couple of them sent personal messages to me again on LinkedIn saying, thanks so much to just learn a different skill. I mean, it's the basic skill. So the hustle really there for me was, well, people are asking for the same thing that I was doing. There's a need there. So let me just put that information together, because you never know where that's going to lead.
So where does ego then fit into high performance? Because in the professional speaking world that you and I are involved in, it's all about confidence and selling yourself and saying that you're the best. And I've always been very uncomfortable with, dropping into people's inboxes saying, book me, I'm amazing. Like, I know what I do. I know I can give value, but I'm a lot more comfortable, with the slower word of mouth thing.
Sure.
And that is an ego thing. And as part of that, what type of reputation do you build? I had a similar post a few weeks back that I posted about, I just washed my old little Honda car after having being interviewed about my success in the world. I popped outside, washed my 2007 Honda model with all of its scratches and dings and stuff. And as I watched it, I had this moment of, hang on, this dirty, dusty little car that looks like a mommy wagon, that's not an outward show of or representation of success in the traditional terms. It took me to the most amazing experiences of my career. And then also having the same thoughts, but will this add to the reputation or will this detract from the reputation? So let's maybe have a conversation about high performance and the role of ego, confidence in it in years past, and now authenticity and humanity.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the car and authenticity as well. Now, again, that post had my old car too. It's a 17-year-old little Toyota, one of the smallest cars available at the time when we got the car. But yeah, and ego, it is one of those things where you, as you say, you want to be confident and sell the message. But there has to be a human side to your story as well. A couple of my friends have been following, and we have these sort of running chats, so Mauro and I, and he said, don't be afraid to share the human story. And I never actually knew, I knew exactly what he meant, but I never knew how to execute on that. Because, as you say, the ego is telling me, sell high performance, book me, I'm available. By the way, I am available for those who are interested in booking. But, but what I'm trying to understand here is there's got to be a point where you can maybe just turn down the volume on the ego for a bit so that you can sort of paint in the rest of the story too. And this also brings me back to that interview that I listened to this morning on the Tim Ferriss show with Hugh Jackman, the Australian actor. Again, he does live shows too, not just TV, not just movies. And he has a principle that he works by, and he's got routines. He talks about routines, and he knows as well. And this goes to the ego, the monkey mind. He has to put these steps in place in order to deliver a good show. It doesn't mean he's going to necessarily deliver the good show. He still has to bring up the goods. But if he hasn't done all those steps in his routines, when he's on stage, that monkey mind will take over and say, you see why you stuffed that line up? It's because you didn't do that routine that you're supposed to do. And he doesn't want that thing interrupting his process of delivery. And that's the sort of execution part that we're talking about, the execution with precision. So it makes his preparation thorough so that the execution can be, you can deliver it with precision.
There you go. That preparation that you talked about, and that decision, whatever I'm going to get up, dress up, and show up for today, there's a decision. It's not just preparation. It's not just routine. It all starts with the decision, whether it's to change in disruption, whether it's to get into the helicopter, whether it's to win in the new game of business, which is, Roger and the other keynote that's really popular at the moment because it deals with innovation and disruptive change. Whatever your thing is, it starts with a decision. I am going to, and then taking the next steps, then having the routines, then I am going to not listen to what others told me about what a speaker should be, what an entrepreneur should look like, what a successful female business person should look like, what a pilot should look like. I'm going to make the decision for me, what I want from life, and how I'm going to execute it in a way that makes me serve my purpose.
Yeah, well, we're getting some people making some comments. I just want to get into something. Remember to bring your questions, please. I see Wati's joined us. Thanks. Fake it till you make it. Also a common phrase out there. There's some nice TED Talks about.
There I have to. So fake it till you make it. I've always used it wrongly until I started to know what it means. Fake it till you make it does not mean make promises you can't keep. It does not mean lie. It does not mean be unethical. It does not mean accepting a contract, for instance, and then building a company around it. It means faking the confidence. So acting and showing up and dressing up while you don't feel confident. So fake the confidence until the confidence catches up with you. Confidence follows action. Motivation follows action. Passion follows action.
That reminds me, I had a great chat with John Vlismus a couple of weeks ago, and also he had a 20-year plus international successful career, one of the top South African comedians, etc. Yeah. He said on his last show, after more than 20 years of doing it, standing behind the curtain, waiting to go in, those thoughts came in saying, but you're not actually good enough. You don't deserve to be on the stage with this person. And it was incredible and almost, I don't know if relief's the right description, but for me, it was almost a full circle moment to know that just before I go on stage, when I feel like those thoughts kicking in, I say, well, maybe it's just because I'm fairly new at this. It's only been a couple of years. When I get better, or when this, or you put whatever you want to in the placeholder there. But to hear such a celebrated person in his talent, in his field, still have those thoughts on the last day. He'd already decided to retire, so this was quite literally the last time he was going to do it. Still have the feeling of imposter syndrome.
Yeah, absolutely.
We get
more
some
comments.
Some more of your questions. So I see my dad's joined in. Hi, Dad. He says, see your job done before you start it. That's a quote from my shinner, his dad, Donald MacPhail. I like that. And Quibus, a very big fighter pilot, Quibus is joining us saying, getting into a helicopter is not a good idea to start with. But anyway, he loves the connection. But that's an old joke about fighters and helicopter pilots. And Jock's father-in-law, hi, Alex and UNITA. Where does the purpose, aim, come into a hustle? The first principle of warfare, selection and maintenance of the aim. If you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. Yeah, so we're talking about where does the purpose, the aim, come into the hustle? So you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. The purpose, the way I'm describing it, is not the purpose, I want to be a professional speaker, because that defines what I do. That is if you don't know what the aim is, you'll get lost in the battlefield, if I'm paraphrasing now. Yeah. So the aim is professional speaker, but my purpose through doing professionals or doing speaking and consultation sessions and jumping on random video shows, etc., is I want to help make success easier. Whatever my way is of getting there, if I want to make success easier for my neighbor who's a courier company and can't deliver all of their wine, I get in my car and I start helping them to deliver wine so they can be more successful. I help them create a system. It doesn't need to stick to the what I do. It needs to be loose from the what I do. And the purpose is then, how do I measure the difference I've made? A very easy distinction between purpose and vision, for instance. Purpose is what societal impact do I have? It's all about them. Vision is what do I want from this?
Okay, I like that. And you're going back to aim with Jock's question. Another place I see that coming in is value. And again, based on the sort of interaction across the various social platforms of late, I'm getting a lot of people reaching out for various things. You can't obviously take on everything. Some things are flattering and you'd love to be involved and you can't do it. Some things are way out and it doesn't interest you. But some things are great and it seems to be a fit, but still you can't do it. And obviously other things you'll choose carefully and you will add some value. But for me, if you're not adding value, even though you want to be involved in something, you're almost like dead weight around the table. You don't really want to be wasting your time or their time. If you could be adding, 10 units of value to company A, then do that rather than being a hanger-on, adding 1 unit of value for the same 1 hour of your week. So I like to tie it all back to value.
Yeah, and that's where purpose comes in as well. I always say, after purpose takes a long time to figure out. Oh my goodness, it's usually half the day just talking on purpose because we're not used to dealing in these loose type of concepts. We're used to being told this is the system, these are the action points, tick the boxes or make a decision. Now suddenly purpose needs you to dig down deep. So whatever your purpose is, it becomes the filter for everything you do, whether it be in business or in life. Does this move me closer towards my purpose? or does this actually take me away from for an hour, for a day, for a focus period? And I've had to become, in business, it's one of the biggest lessons I've learned. I've had to become better at saying no. Not no because I don't want to, but no, it really doesn't fit my purpose. It will help you, it will add value to you, but it won't add value to me. And we're very often taught that you shouldn't be adding value to yourself because that's selfish. It's not true. If you look at ethics, for instance, it's between balancing the good, the self, and the other, not just the good and the other. So we've got to become better at saying, not what's in this for me, but what value does this bring to me relating to my purpose? And then becoming better at saying no. And no is also on a continuum for me. So it's not always just no, I won't do it. It can be no, not now.
Yeah.
Or yes, but a little bit later. And if we can start bringing time into these discussions as well, then we make it easier to say, this is my purpose, these are decisions I make for it, but also I keep in mind that it's not about having a fixed plan.
I like that point about the time and the no. I'm going to come back to that in a moment. So what he's asking for UNITA, the helicopter picture sounds like there is no plan B and C. What he being a helicopter pilot from the Air Force with me.
So when did you listen to the whole helicopter story? Whole one?
He's a helicopter pilot. He's probably switched off after the first sentence. But if you want to clarify, you're welcome.
So helicopter is not the plan. Helicopter is areas you need to visit. You can visit them in whichever structure you want, whatever your plan A, B, or C is. As long as you visit all of them and make decisions relevant to your business, then yes. And for more information, contact me offline and we can have a better chat.
Great. So this thing about time, it sounds like you're almost describing the salesman side of the equation, which I've done a lot of that too in the last couple of years. In the process of developing an app, I try to get some buy-in on a corporate level and an education level, etc. And that required getting through to these corporates, knocking on doors, and you obviously get a lot of no's. But a no is just having listened to another conversation in the last couple of weeks as well, it's just an opportunity or not an opportunity, but it's a description that the person doesn't have all the information yet. Maybe there's a different way you can sell it, or maybe the timing's not right, the set of circumstances. So no, if you're the salesman side of things, it just means come back to them later with a more clearer picture or a better idea, or maybe you haven't sold yourself properly enough with the whole product as well.
Yeah, and definitely don't take it personally. Very often when people say no, it's not no as a reflection on you. It's a no on, I don't have time to do this now. I might love to, but I don't have capacity to say no plus my reasons for no. It's just get away, can't right now.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so we've got Clinton joining us saying, great session. Thanks for sharing this. Pandemic was an auto-rotation situation. Once again, the helicopter metaphor keeps going strong. We seem to be strong on the aviation metaphors today, which is good. But another one that you are, a tagline of yours as well, is doing better business better. So I don't know if you want to just spend a moment and describe what better business better is then.
So people are used to doing better business, right? In my career, because of stuff I've said yes to and things I got interested in, so I studied corporate communications and then, came into business and fell completely in love into business and found my drive and found what I really wanted to do, which is business. Doesn't matter what it is as long as it's business. And then in that, one of my clients was the Ethics Institute. And the more I did stuff for them, the more I started realizing, well, this is really interesting. There are things that I've never considered, that's never been part of my framework. So let me learn more. And they've got an ethics officer certification program. And I thought, well, will be the easiest for me to learn. So I'm a certified ethics practitioner, not because I can use it, but because the information helped me in business. Same with the Institute of Directors. They were a client of mine. And I realized, well, governance starts making sense to me because when you go through the ranks, you're a junior and then you become a manager and then you become senior manager and then you become hopefully the CEO, and that's where it ends, right? And what I've learned is it's not where it ends. There's the board of directors level and the policymakers level and so on. And that's not operations. That's not management. That's governance, and governance should be based in ethical leadership and all of these concepts that I've never heard before. So I became a certified director as well. So I've got these 2 designations based purely on I was very curious, and so I earned them. But what that helped me understand was doing better business in terms of money, the way we taught, go be a success, isn't enough anymore. The way where the planet is at the moment, where humanity is at the moment, just the amount of effort we have to go through to get things done. If you like read history books or look at old shows, you know, people go, oh, the good old days. Obviously, the good old days aren't here anymore. The good new days are here. But to do that and to win in that game of business, to be successful, we've got to do business a little bit different. So do better business, make the profit, keep the company alive, pay your people, do better business. Better is about ethics, innovation, and leadership. So making sure that you take care of people, planet, and profit, making sure that you understand and embed ethics in a culture. So it's not just something, you know, for the academics and for the philosophy students, but it's something that's part of you. Understanding the role that leadership plays, and that leadership has also changed from 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago. So many things that we still study in university on leadership isn't relevant anymore. I mean, you and I just had a conversation about our biggest hits on LinkedIn, you know, where it was trending. Mine was when we showed the opposite of that, when we showed the old cars, when we showed the non-ego stuff, when we showed the stuff that you're never supposed to show if you want to have a reputation as successful. So the better is about the doing different part, and then innovation thinking, how you can do better and different, not by spending more, but just by doing different with what you already have.
Okay, good. You've opened up some more curiosity there. You've got a couple of talks out online as well about social media, etc. And I think you mentioned something along the lines of, paraphrasing here, you may not like social media, but your customers, so talking about you, the business, your customers use social media. So if your customer is X, then perhaps look into having an Instagram channel or a LinkedIn channel. So do you advise people on social media? I mean, I know this is part of your talk, but is that part of your skill set in advising in the business that you're in? So
now we're splitting the UNITAs here. So as speaker, no, I don't focus on it, because I take the more big picture view and the more managerial executive view. So if you're a business leader, if you're running a business or involved in running a business, I speak to you. However, the company that I founded, and I'm still very much part of operating, does communication. And social media is part of communication tools. So I know my stuff, my team knows their stuff, the company knows its stuff. I don't then necessarily advise people on social media as a speaker, but is it necessary for you to understand how to use it, where it fits in, the power of it, etc.? If you're in a business, absolutely. If you having a career where you keep your head down and you just hope to all high heaven that you get a little bit of a bonus and an increase every year, social media is not necessarily necessary. But if you want to access one of the most powerful, most cost-effective tools ever, you better get to know social media.
Yeah. Well, I see that in general in South Africa, it'll be obviously generalizing, but to say that the LinkedIn take-on is a little bit behind the curve regarding some of our counterparts in Europe, America, etc. But it's something that I've found great value in. It's an area that I've focused on, particularly in the last two years plus. I've been on the channel for maybe 6 or 7, but I've focused really hard on it. And it's something that I want to explore as well in sort of giving my assistance and guidance. But one of the key things that I've found that is useful from a user point of view, the type of content I read, and also the way I've shared my content, been quite active on it, is to make it personal. So rather than having company X with their logo, it's a beautiful logo and everything, and it's the great description, posting content, have person X from company X posting in a personal capacity. And this is the area that where I see this value in terms of brand ambassador roles. Each, it could be the marketing manager or whoever, but it'd have to be someone that can add valuable content. People would like to read. It's exciting, it's eye-catching, etc. What are your thoughts on this sort of the South African lethargy with LinkedIn? There's potentials there, and also this idea of company versus individual, but selling a brand, a company.
I love doing business in South Africa because we're always 3 to 6 months behind. So the rest of the world gets to make their mistakes and we get to learn from their mistakes and just be awesome all the time. That's been my experience in South Africa. For the longest time, we're so far ahead in so many things, especially innovation thinking, disruption, etc. We run circles around the world where they still, do linear thinking. We've got the old way. South Africans just go, make a plan. That's what we do. But when it comes to trusting technology and adopting technology and using it and understanding how it helps, there's definitely a little bit of a lag. How it's then being used. So, if you don't know, then you phone an expert. And if you phone the wrong expert, they're going to just slap your logo on everything. But people buy from people they trust. That is usually my first lesson way back in the days when I used to do social media training. People buy from people they trust. And people trust people they know, and you get to know someone when you spend time with them. Staring at a company logo over and over and over for a couple of months is not really going to move your knowing or trust level at all. But starting to understand what is behind the people, behind the thoughts, the feelings, the drive behind this brand, they'll get to know the people. Yeah. We saw a few years ago, we can post our best work that we did for clients, and it was amazing. But when we posted the cupcakes we ate in the office the day, massive amount of engagement. People want to see behind the scenes, and the reason we don't do it is because we've been trained differently. So the younger generation coming in, they obviously don't have the voice around the tables yet. They're advising and being shut down. But I do think there will be a change as most of us old people. I am over 35, so I don't count as a youth anymore. I am officially old in social media terms. The way we've been trained is very much, if it doesn't comply to a certain amount of rules or certain expectations, then it shouldn't be used. It can't be used. It can't be legit. And that's a little bit of the mindset still. Social media is for games because that was our first experience with Facebook. You throw sheep at people. And that's where South African mindset kind of got stuck. It is for games, it is not for business. Instead of saying, let me have a look at this again, and let me try do differently. It's not a corporate brochure. It's not about slapping my logo on. The best description I've ever heard about what your social media channels should feel like is your office building with a baseball cap on. So it's still you, but it's a more relaxed you.
Okay, that sounds interesting. I can buy that. We've got some questions coming in here from Rian. He's saying, hi there. I was wondering how to manage time spent on work and business versus personal time spent. With a lockdown and working from home, it's difficult to put everything for work and then suddenly stopping at 5 o'clock and going into personal mode. Most of the time, I'll just keep working hard until 8. And other times, I'll start losing motivation around lunch. Well, I love the way that you said that because I feel the same. But let's hear UNITA's version and I'll fill in the gaps if there are any.
So I was very mean at the beginning of lockdown. I was pointing fingers at people and going, you see now, you see. I set up my company to be remote right from the start. So since 2011, I've worked from home and my entire team. It's literally part of our recruitment process. It's part of our employment contracts. It's part of our management systems. It's part of the IT system, everything. We don't have offices. We've got a little space connected to my home that we get together once a week to just kind of meet each other. But it's a bunch of old desks that I bought from a Germany and sprayed white. That's the formality of the office. So I've had time to figure that out. Now, I'm very happy married with 2 kids. They are 7 and 9 now. So I absolutely know. My daughter was born in 2011 and I started the business in 2011 and my son was born in 2012. So I've been through it. And that thing of how do you switch off is ridiculously difficult. And I've actually started the journey this year of saying, well, why should it be separate? And the key for me in between has always been communication. So on Monday night, for instance, I had to do a bunch of recordings that I couldn't get to during the day. And I can't just then go and say to the kids, well, there you go. It's your problem now. And neither to my husband. So if I know beforehand the planning, the preparation, that's in the first step of your high performance process, Alex. If I know that this is going to be what the impact is of my business that flows outside of hours, I need to communicate. I need to enable my family so they can get dinner on the table. I need to communicate what I need from them and communicate back to them to ask them what they need from me. So on those days that you do need to work a little bit different or work a little bit longer, don't leave it until 5 o'clock and then say, but I've got to work a little bit more, because it creates friction. Plan your day, have an estimate of, what needs to happen by when, and then the switching off bit, find a routine. I'm so glad you mentioned it, the Hugh Jackman thing. I'm not the greatest cook in the world. I love baking. I hate cooking, but I found that if I go immediately from my laptop to the kitchen, because remember, I don't feed my kids ever. They've never seen food. So by the time 5 o'clock comes, they are starving because they've never eaten. So I've got 30 minutes to get dinner on the table. And that 30 minutes initially irritated me a lot because it interrupted my mind for work. What I realized is that was enough of I still feel productive. I still feel busy. My mind is still in planning mode, get the peas in, get the rice on, etc. But because the mind is focused on something different, by the time I'm done cooking dinner, there is a little bit of a change for me. And then it becomes my choice again. Do I pick up the laptop again afterwards or not? So the 5 o'clock can be very irritating until you start making it part of your routine. And then also the other thing we need to be really better at, all of us, whether you whether it's for business or whether it's for personal, we need to stop having this yes or no, very hard, it's one extreme or the other, this fixed mindset thing, where it's all about extremes. There's a continuum in the middle. So today, if I'm not feeling less for it by lunch, go, okay, I recognize my body might be tired. What else is on my to-do list? Am I going to mow the lawn now? Am I going to take a walk outside? Am I going to, do some of the washing now? Whatever it is. The benefit is if you work for a company that's set up that way. So our rules is if you go to a client, in the days we still went to clients, and you pass the shops and you need bread and milk, please buy bread and milk in work hours. So it helps if your company is set up that way. If your company is not set up that way, if your employer is not set up that way, I think it might start changing that flexibility, but we've got to be flexible with us and not saying I should be working 8 to 5, rather saying I need to put in 8 hours a day. My great periods between 6 and 9 in the morning, a little bit of a gap, etc. Have a routine, do the wind down thing, know yourself, and be a little bit kinder to yourself.
It's incredible how hard on ourselves we can be. There's no one that would speak to you the way you speak to you. You're such an idiot. You stuffed this up again, that kind of stuff. But I want to just echo one or two things there, and also just build on them as well. This idea of be flexible, and today you could work longer, tomorrow you could work shorter. But the point of not list for it, running out of steam at 11, 12, 1 in the day, that's okay. Maybe it is the opportunity to put a pin in this, do something different, like mow your lawn, or go for a run, or just a walk. Just change the system. Walk around, get up, get your body moving around, get some blood flowing, and also just the process of walking. I mean, we can reference Steve Jobs. He famously never sat down at meetings. He would call somebody over and they'd walk, and they'd just walk and talk for an hour. Because this process of moving, this sort of mechanical motion of your limbs moving around, it gets your brain going as well. So that's a good thing.
We also have to talk about rest quickly if it's a good space for it.
Go for it.
So what I've learned from my sister and her husband being commercial airline pilots is that rest is literally part of your job, as in your company, your employer regulates your rest. You cannot be on duty for longer than X amount of time. The rest of us in corporate is kind of like the employer goes, the more you can be on, the better. But high performance pilots, how much time do you have to rest, and how irritating is that when you feel like go, 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 but you know that to be responsible, you've got to rest. And
there was another nice document when I was in the Air Force before. There was basically the Bible of flying. That was the LMU 3. And there was a statement in there that said that if you are a pilot, you have to eat every 4 hours. And that was always a good one, that you couldn't go on these long missions without being provided for with sustenance, because it regulates your blood sugar, etc., your concentration, performance in a high-risk activity. So not only rest, but nutrition is also an important point. Just some more comments coming through. So regauge, I think it is always a balancing act between an individual and representing a company. in my opinion, it should not become one. Yeah, I agree. You shouldn't become the same thing, but you could be a voice to be the behind-the-scenes information. Clinton joining us again, humanize and personalize success the same way we need to humanize and personalize our failures for others to learn on, building on our story earlier. A personal brand and not just a company face. And Sasha, hey Sasha, thanks for joining. She says, document and share the journey, not just the destination. And I think that's the great thing, and that's probably the reason why I took that photo in the first place for my post, because it's some kind of a personal documentation too. And it's the journey, isn't it? I mean, the journey's not over with your business. You wanted to set up a business, you've set up a business, and Sasha's got her own business too. But the journey's not over.
No, it's never over. It's never over. And until the day that you have that death certificate in your hand, it's never over. It might feel over. It might feel absolutely stuffed up. It might feel as if everything you've worked for and everything you could possibly do is just gone, and that there's no opportunity to start again. But you know what? Until there's a flat line, we've got to get up, we've got to dress up, and we've got to show up.
Yeah, and just do that. But I think, UNITA, that's a great place to wrap it up. But I think we can probably talk more about this. So maybe we'll just put a pencil in a diary for a later conversation once again. I enjoyed your insights, and it was a fun conversation. And thanks for all your questions and comments coming through from the listeners too.
Yeah.
All the best to the rest of this crazy period. It's probably going to be most of this year. Thanks for your time, and we'll catch up again soon.
Thanks for the invite. This was a lot of fun.
Cheers, UNITA.
Bye, everybody.
Well, thanks very much for joining and for your comments as well. I appreciate the inputs. Please remember to subscribe, share, like, and until next time. A bit of feedback again. The show is morphing into a Wednesdays only show. So from now on, it'll be Wednesdays once a week, and that'll be going forward for the next foreseeable future. Thanks again. Till next time. Stay safe.